Alright, we're going to pick it up where we left off last time. Number 88, we're asked to solve the trigonometric equation. It's impossible to do the way it stands right now because you've got two different angles. So that's almost like saying sine of x equals sine of y. You have to get to speaking the same variable before you can continue. So we need to pull out the note card and substitute sine 2x for what it's equivalent to, which is 2 sine of half of that angle, and then cosine of half of that angle, which is fine because it takes us down to where our angles match. The only problem is now that we introduced a different trig function. We can handle this. If you'll push all of your trig functions to one side, so bring this over, where he's negative, get it to where everything is equal to 0. At that point, you should be thinking factor. You can factor out sine of theta. That's going to leave 2 cosine theta minus 1. And so now we're set for two problems. We have sine of theta is equal to 0. 2 cosine theta minus 1 equals 0. So that's going to be, let's see here, cosine theta equals 1/2. So I kind of shortcutted that. Over here where we have sine equals 0, that is the unit circle. That means you want your back number for all your ordered pairs to be 0, because sine is the number in the back space. Okay, if that happens at 0 and pi, because remember we're answering in radians, not degrees. So there's two answers. Now we need to figure out, where does cosine have a positive 1/2 value? Well, start by using the sign, the positive, to tell you where to go. We're in first quadrant and we're in fourth quadrant. Sine is defined as adjacent over hypotenuse. That means this other side, the opposite side, is square root of 3, making your angle 60 degrees. Remember, 60 degrees is the same thing as pi over 3. So one of our answers is pi over 3. That's the first quadrant answer. To get the one in the second quadrant, remember, double your denominator. That's 6 pi over 3 for the whole thing. Take 1 off, 5 pi over 3. So you have to have all four answers: 0, pi over 3, and 5 pi over 3. Okay, so number 89, we have cosine 2 theta equals square root of 3 over 2. You only have one trig function, so the fact that this is 2 theta is not going to cause us any problems. We can go straight to sketching a picture and labeling, because you've got your trig function with your angle. Don't let the fact that the angle is 2 theta bother you. Work it the same way as if it was just plain old x. Cosine of x equals square root of 3 over 2. With that said, come over here. Cosine is positive in first and fourth. Adjacent is square root of 3. Hypotenuse is 2, making the opposite 1. That means that our angle is 30 degrees. 30 degrees is the same thing as pi over 6. So if you double that, that would be 12 pi over 6. Subtract 1, that means 11 pi over 6. So those are our two answers. So we need to write those down. We've got pi over 6. We have 11 pi over 6. Now we have to deal with the fact that this thing says 2 theta. Well, that means we're going to have to solve for theta, which is going to involve dividing by 2, since this is multiplied by 2. Our answers are going to shrink then if we divide by 2, making the two answers we have, they're going to be really, really small. And the instructions say we want all of the angles that satisfy for this interval. So what we need to do is we actually need to go around the circle one more time. So basically this coefficient tells you how many times to go around your circle. Well, if you're going to do that, just keep in mind the whole circle is 2 pi. 2 pi is the same thing as 2 times 6, 12 pi over 6. That way all of your fractions have the same denominator and you can just add. So 1 pi over 6 plus 12 pi over 6 is 13 pi over 6. So he's coterminal. Coterminal with the second one is 12 pi over 6 plus 11 pi over 6 is 23 pi over 6. Okay, so those look really large, but what you're fixing to do is come in here and say, okay, I've got to take all of these answers and I'm distributing a 1/2, which is the same thing as dividing by 2. Works out perfectly over here. The 2 and the 2 cancel or reduce. Now, whenever you're multiplying this 1/2 times these fractions, keep in mind the 2's in the bottom, so all of your denominators just double. So that goes to pi over 12, 11 pi over 12, 13 pi over 12, 23 pi over 12. And if you think about it, look at that last one. That is just underneath 24 pi over 12. So it is within the one rotation. Okay, let's keep going. Solve the triangle if possible. Okay, don't you just love the if possible part? So know that no solution could happen. Now, what's nice is that we were given 2 angles. So you don't have to worry about the ambiguous case. Remember, that is when you have one angle given. That angle happens to be acute, and whenever you solve your problem, you get an acute angle. We don't have that problem right now. We just need to find angle A. So we're going to do 180. See if I can get this calculator to type. 180 minus 18.1 minus 109 is 52.9. Okay, so we've got that part, and if I'm looking, I see a perfect match. That means I have a complete ratio, and I can use the law of sines, which is going to make this simple. So I'm going to do sine of B over B equals sine of C over little c. Okay, plug in what I know. That's sine of 18.1 all over 31.56 equals sine of 109 over little c. We're going to cross multiply. And it's just a matter of writing it all out. You're going to end up dividing by sine of 18.1. Please make sure that you put sine of 18.1. That's imperative that you do that, otherwise the answer is not going to come out correctly. So the way I've asked y'all to type these in, again, make sure your calculator's in degrees. So we've got 31.56 times sine of 109. Press enter, then divide by sine 18.1. And you should get your answer. I got 96.05. I'm going to go to 2 decimal places because the other side, B, was given with 2 decimal places. So just trying to follow suit there. Okay, and now I need little a. Little a is going to be, well, we're going to start the same way. That first ratio remains the same. Okay, so I'm going to have sine of 52.9 all over little a. You're going to cross multiply. So a sine 18.1, 31.56, sine 52.9. It doesn't want to go. Again, divide through by sine 18.1. Okay? And your answer should basically fall in your lap. Just please, again, make sure when you're typing in your solution, type the top, press enter, then do divided by sine 18.1. Yes, you could do it all at one time if you use parentheses correctly, but it's so easy to just forget to press something and then be off. So we have all 3 pieces, everything worked out lovely. Okay, same instructions. We are supposed to solve the triangle if possible. Again, check your problem. Now, notice I am given one angle, but the angle that I'm given is not acute, it is obtuse. So we did, we bypassed the ambiguous case once again. And if you get to noticing, I actually have a whole ratio, so I can start with sine of 98 over 43.4, and then my only course of action is sine of b over 15.2. Now, I'm going to cross multiply. This one's going to feel a little different because we're looking for an angle, but it won't be that bad. Okay, make sure you're dividing by your coefficient, 43.4. Okay, once again, here we go, 15.2 times sine of 98. And then I'm going to divide that by 43.4. Now, I get this decimal, and in all honesty, I don't normally write the decimal down, and I'm definitely not clear in my calculator. Keep all of your decimals in your calculator. We need to get B, not sine of B, so we got to do inverse sine, so second sine, and then do your copy and paste. That ends up being 20.3. They did not do that for their angle. Their angle is rounded to the nearest integer, so we're just going to do 20. Okay? So we need to figure out the other parts. Now look, angle C is not going to be difficult. We need to do 180 minus 98 minus 20. That gives us 62. So that's just knowing that all three angles add up to 180. The only other thing we've got to find is side C. So let's use our original ratio, sine 98 over 43.4 equals sine of 62 over little c. Multiply it out. Oops, totally forgot my sign, didn't I? Sine 98, and then 43.4 sine 62, divide by sine 98. Yes, you would put that down there. I'm just going quickly. Sine 62, enter, divided by sine 98 is 38.69. Now they did take their sides to one decimal place, so I'm going to do 38.7. So that completes everything that I needed to know. I found the three missing pieces. Okay, we've got 2 minutes. Let's see if we can get this done. This meets all the qualifications for the ambiguous case. We have one angle given. The angle is acute. Well, so maybe we don't meet them all just yet. We've got to find out, do we get an acute angle? So we need to be highly suspicious, put it that way. Be on your toes, and don't forget that you could have a different scenario. Okay, so I got sine of A over 32.41. Cross multiply. It takes longer to write it down than it does to actually do the problem. Okay, so we're going to divide through by the 16.12. Okay, I'm going to do 32.41 sine of 14.4, enter, divided by 16.12, enter. I got 0.5. I'm going to do second sine, second answer, and I got 30. So yes, we met all the qualifications. We have B is an acute angle, A is an acute angle. So we have two scenarios. We've got to go with it like A is 30, or we have to chase it down like, what if we had A prime? 180 minus 30 is 150, okay? So you have to work with both cases. This is going to get interesting. So we have to do, okay, what's angle C if this one is the case? If this is the case, to find C, you're going to do 180 minus 14.4 minus 30. So C in this instance is 135.6. Okay, and since none of the others were like that, let's just do, well, yes it was, my bad, 135.6. There we go. Let's do sine 14.4 over 16.12, but now we're doing sine of 135.6 all over C. I'm just going to cross multiply this. Tell you what, we're running out of time. Let's finish this one in the next video. Okay, so if you need to see the end, you just need to pull up the other video to see the conclusion.